Well, what's happening there is really tragic. It's a demonstration of the failure of central banking and of really bad governance over 20 years and um, really bad spending decisions and of manipulations by banks and leveraged investments that blew up in everybody's face and the financial crisis and a recession all mixed together in an environment where Greece doesn't have the traditional ability that most sovereign states have to simply inflate their way out of the crisis by printing money, because Germany doesn't want to do that, because the central bank doesn't want to do that. So as a result, Greece is trapped in this monetary cycle where the economy is collapsing. It's crashed 25%, which has never happened in peacetime in any European country. Unemployment among under 30-year-olds is 60% and climbing, which is devastating for an entire generation. And at the current rate, Greece would have to spend 2% of its GDP for the next 30 years just to barely make a dent in this debt, which means that functionally the country is insolvent, will never be able to pay this debt, and the debt will only keep getting worse. It's in a death spiral of debt, and the only real solution is to write off a lot of it. It's unpayable. You can't expect a country to pay 2% of its GDP in debt, because if you do that, what's the average GDP rate across Europe? Well, it's 2.5%. You're condemning an entire generation to a no-growth economy for 30 years. And the worst part of this is that this is all wrapped in a sort of Calvinist, moralistic tale of bad, lazy, tax-avoiding Greeks who don't pay their debt, and it's morally wrong to pay your debt. This is finance, it's not ethics. This is not a moral failing or a character flaw, because you can't assign character flaws to an entire nation. That's a somewhat overbroad generalization. You might be accused of a certain level of, let's say, prejudice when you apply that. Greek people are hardworking. In fact, their working hours are higher than most European nations. And many Greek people paid their taxes their whole life. My dad certainly did. He also invested in a private retirement fund that then got nationalized and cut in half through no fault of his own. And then the other idea that somehow people in a country are responsible for the choice of their government. I don't know what's going on in England lately, but do you have perfect democracy that completely represents the opinions of the people, and therefore you can hold them completely responsible for everything their leaders do? I don't think any country has that. Certainly not Greece. And so to not only condemn an entire people, but then condemn an entire generation for the bad choices of a few select people in government who were quite comfortably aided and abetted by banks that made an enormous amount of profit on all of this, while at the same time, those same banks have received trillions of dollars in interest-free bailouts with no strings attached and complete forgiveness. Nobody's moralizing against them, right? That, I think, is fundamentally unfair. So what's the relationship with Bitcoin? Unfortunately, Greece isn't ready for Bitcoin. You need infrastructure, you need education, you need familiarity with the system, you need technological support, smartphone applications. You need, Bitcoin isn't ready for Greece. There's not enough capacity. The user interfaces are still very kludgy, sucky, not particularly polished. The experience is choppy and not very smooth. And it's very difficult to secure properly unless you really know what you're doing, which means there are probably a few tens of thousands of people in Greece who are technically sophisticated enough, have just the right amount of cash that they need to get out of the country, can find someone to convert it to Bitcoin, know how to secure that Bitcoin, and can probably use it to save themselves from this crisis, which isn't going to save Greece, right? You're not going to do anything with saving 10,000 people in that population. However,